All right. So what is the class width for this frequency table given right here? So one thing you can do, right, is take one of the classes, any one of these classes, just randomly pick one, right? I like to pick the first one because the numbers are smaller there, and just count how many elements you have in there, right? You count it off. So the first number there is 7. So that's the first element, right? You stick your finger up, 7. And you just count to the upper limit. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So on a count to 17, I've counted 11 numbers. That's my class width. That's it. My class width is just how many elements you have in each class. And in this case, it is 11, right? Is your dog okay? Yeah, she's not okay. She's freaking out. You just have to let her bark it out. Something's going on, but she'll be fine, I think. Nope, she's still barking. But it'll be okay. She'll tire herself out. Okay, so that's one way of you can do it, right? But if the numbers are too much and you're trying to count it, that might take too long, right? 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, what if the class width was like 130, right? Are you gonna really sit there and count to 130 numbers using your hands? I'm already tired of counting up to 20, right? So you could do that. Or you can realize that when you look at the lower limits for classes that are next to each other, like that 18 and that 7, if you subtract them, right, 18 minus 7, do you notice that you end up with the class width? And it will work for any of these. If you pick the numbers next to each other, if I pick 40 and 29, I'll also get 11. If I get 62 and 51, I'll also get 11. So you can actually just subtract them as well. And you only need to do it once to find out what the class width is, right? So you could pick any two as long as they're next to each other and just subtract them, and it'll give you the same answer. Even on the right-hand side, 50 minus 39 gives you 11 as well. Okay, so that could have worked as well to tell you what the class width is. So that's one way of doing it if you're already given the table to find out what the class width is. If you're thinking back to what we did in class last time, which was this guy right here, to find the class width with the data, you had to look at the smallest number you had and subtract it from the largest number you had and then divide it by the number of classes. And remember, the number of classes will always be given to you, okay? In this case, it was 7, and we got this number of 55.85, and then you always round up. So this one that the last U-Try we did last time was had a class width of 56, and you guys actually did a good job of filling this out. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill out the rest of this. You guys already did this last time. So hopefully we get the same numbers to match here. I should have gotten, for this one, it looks like it was 8 for the second class, 6 for that one, 5, 2, 1, and 3, right? And this is just what we did last time. And if you need a refresher, right, on how I got these numbers, let's just do one for example just real quick. Class 2 is numbers that are from 115 to 170. So I'm supposed to go through this data and look for numbers that are between 115 and 170. So 130 is one of them. 400 is too big. 200 is too big. 350 is too big. So I just keep going. Ooh, 150 is good, right? 130 looks good. 160 looks good. 130, 150, and 170 and 180. Right? Those are the only numbers that I see that are between 115 and 170. So when I count them out, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's how we get this 8 right here. Right? That's how we get that 8 right there. So hopefully that is a quick refresher on how we do these frequency tables, right? How you set up the classes and then how you count it out. Right? So not too crazy, not too bad, right? So keep that in mind when you're looking at the homework, right? How to do that stuff. And let's continue on to today's lesson then. Once you have your classes and your frequencies, there's a couple other things we need to find. And those couple other things are listed right here. So let's go with this first one. The first one is the midpoint, right? So once you have your lower and your upper limits of your class, you can divide it and find this thing called the midpoint, which is a fancy marker for your data. Right? It's like the middle of your class. And in order for you to find it, you just simply use this equation right here. You take the lower class limit, you add it to the upper class limit, and then you divide by 2. So I'm going to come back here real quick. I'm going to show you down here where it says I'll do one, right? So this table is partially filled out already. This is from the first example we did all the way up here. You see I'll do one right here, and we have these numbers 6, 10, 13, and all that stuff, right? That's down here. It's transplanted down here for you. What I want to show you is an example of how to find the midpoint. So the way you find the midpoint is you take the lower limit plus the upper limit and then divide by 2. That's all that's saying right here, right? So how that looks on this one right here would be 7 plus 18 divided by 2. And you just plug that into a calculator, right? So 7, turn on the calculator first. 7 plus 18, that's going to be equal to 25. Divide that by 2. And the midpoint for this is 12.5. 12.5. And that's how you find your midpoint, right? That's how you find your midpoint. You just add the lower and upper limits together and then divide by 2, right? And that's how you find your midpoint. Okay? No questions on midpoints? Is that okay? It's basically a fancy way of, you're finding the middle number between each of your classes. So 12.5 is technically the number that's exactly in the middle of 7 and 18. That's all the midpoint is. It's just helping you find the middle number between each of your classes. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next one is relative frequency. Relative frequency of a class is the proportion or percentage. That's the thing that you need to make sure you understand. It could either be a fraction or, where did I get the 2 from? This is part of the formula. If you want to know, like, legitimately though, where that 2 comes from is, if you ever learned how to take the average of 2 numbers, or an average of numbers, I'm taking an average of 2 numbers. I'm taking an average of the lower limit and the upper limit. And since there's only 2 numbers I'm taking the average from, I divide by 2. Hopefully that makes sense, Luis. Yeah, that's how, that's where that 2 comes from. Okay. That's actually a good question, because this next part, for the relative frequency, what you divide by is not 2. What you divide by is going to be different from every problem when you do the relative frequency. And it has to do with the percentage of how many data points you have. And this is the part where some of you might get lost. Okay, so take a look here. Relative frequency of a class is the proportional or percentage of the data that falls in that class. To find this, you just take the frequency and divide it by your sample size. So how many did you sample, right? And that's this formula right here. Let's do this in a different color so I can show it down there. So let me show you how this works. So for the relative frequency, right? The relative frequency is, this is your f, by the way. So my relative frequency would take my f and then divide it by n. And you're like, Nagmi, what the heck is your n? Well, let me show you. Your n is your sample size. So up here, my sample size was 50. They tell me that I'm looking at 50 numbers, and if I sat there and I counted all of these numbers that are on the screen, there should be 50 of them. And if you're lazy like me, you don't have to sit there and count all the numbers in that data chart. You could instead just count all the numbers in the frequency here. So if I add up all these numbers, the 6 plus 10 plus 13 plus 8 plus 50 plus 6 plus 2, this plus 5 plus 6 plus 2, not plus 50, this will tell me that n is equal to 50, right? If you add all these numbers up in this chart, it should equal to how many numbers you counted when you were looking at the your data. So that's where I get the n from. If you are unsure of how I got this n is just the sum of all of these frequencies, right? I'll write that in parentheses. N is the sum of all of your frequency. If you want to write that down, right? N is the sum of all the frequencies. So 6 plus 10 plus 13 plus 8 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2, it's equal to 50. Now, how do you take that information to use to find, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, to find your relative frequency? Well, your relative frequency is just whatever your frequency is. In this case, it's 6. And then you just divide that by your total frequency, your sum of your frequency, which is 50. So the answer for this is just going to be 6 divided by 50. And you could leave it like that because you could leave it as a proportion. And that's what 6 divided by 50 is. A proportion is just a fancy word for fraction, right? Or if you want, you could plug that into the calculator and see what you get. 6 divided by 50, boop, is 0.12. 0.12. I'm going to go back and zoom in here so I can write that a little bit neater. This is 0.12. And that's your answer. That's how you find your relative frequency. Does that make sense? Like, that's all it is. 0.12. Yeah. So if you want me to do it again, so let's take a look here for the relative frequency for the next line down. So let me draw this line so I can show you that that line is so not straight. Hold on a second. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. You guys have a ruler function, right? There we go. I'm gonna cheat even further. Paste, 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 and paste. All right, so there we go. That makes it a little bit easier to see. All right. You don't have to draw the lines. I'm just drawing it just because it's gonna, be hard to see. So let's go ahead. So how to calculate the relative frequency? Let's take a look at this one right here in the second class, right? All I'm saying is the relative frequency is the frequency of that class divided by the sample size. So looking at this part right here, what's the frequency for class 2? For class 2, the frequency is 10. You see that? And then all I'm going to do is divide that 10 by how the samples, how large the sample size is, and the sample size is 50. So that's all it is. It's just 10 divided by 50. And again, you could leave it like that, or you could just plug it into your calculator. 10 divided by 50, and I get here 0.2. And that's what I will write down here. This is equal to 0.2. Okay? And you do that for all of them, right? So this next one would be 13 over 50, and that's going to equal to 0.26 if you plug that into a calculator. 8 over 50, which is equal to 0.16. 5 over 50, and that's going to equal to 0.1. This one is going to be equal to 6 over 50, and that's going to be equal to 0.12. And the last one is going to be 2 over 50, or 0.04. And if those of you who are wondering, how am I able to do that so fast in my head? I'm Asian. I just do math quick. That's just how it is. I'm just kidding. I have the answers to the side over here. And if those of you who actually believe that was the case, you're a little racist. Just a little. Just a little. Okay, so that's how you find the relative frequency. Okay, that's how you find the relative frequency for those values. And the last part is the cumulative frequency, CF, cumulative frequency. The cumulative frequency is the sum of the frequency of that class and all the previous classes. So you take the numbers from before and you just add them up. So right here, the cumulative frequency for this one is just going to be 0.12 because there's nothing else behind it. I just take that number and it's just that one right there. For the next one though, this one's going to be not 0.12, not 0.2, but the answer that I had before, which is 0.12, added with the number that I'm on now. I got a question. Where did the 50 come from? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. The 50 comes from me adding up all the numbers that are in this this part right here, all the numbers in the frequency. So you know what? Let's actually show that. If I were to add all those numbers up, that's where that that total comes from. So 6 plus 10 plus 13 plus 8 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2. And that's where that 50 comes from. Okay? I'm so glad you asked, by the way, Michael. You're probably not the only one who had that question. So thank you for asking. All right, so that's where the 50 comes from. But here's where the tricky part comes in now. For the cumulative frequency, we're looking at all the numbers in the relative frequency, and we're going to add those up, but we're going to add them up along the way. You ready? So the first one is 12.8 because this is 12.8. There's no other number with it, right? Not me to erase you. Bro, I'm erasing everything except that highlighter. Okay, there we go. So this is 0.12. So for the cumulative frequency for this next one, it will be 0.12 plus 0.2, right? That's what that is right there. It's 0.12 plus 0.2. And I just plug that into the calculator. 0.12 plus 0.2. And that comes out to be 0.32. That's what the cumulative frequency is going to be for this one, 0.32. The cumulative frequency, like I said, it sounds confusing, but it's just the sum of everything in the relative frequency and everything behind it. So let's take a look at this next one. This next one is going to be 0.12 plus 0.2 plus 0.26. Do you see what I'm doing here? This right here is just all these numbers added up together to get this number inside here. So this one, I would add right here, 0.12 plus 0.2 plus 0.26. Right? And that's all those numbers right there. And that gives me 0.58. And that's what the cumulative frequency for this one's going to be. It's going to be 0.58. And you just keep doing that. You just keep adding them along. So we'll do it again. I'll add this next one. This next one's going to be now 0.12 plus 0.2 plus 0.26 plus 0.16. Do you see what's happening here? Each time I'm adding this new number. So in this case, this number right here of 0.16, that's this number right here. Sorry, I'm like sniffly here. But this number right here, this last number, this 0.26, it's this 0.26 right here that I'm adding, right? And this one right here, this 0.2, it's this 0.2 that I'm adding. I'm just adding the number as I'm going along to the cumulative is the total as I'm adding it as I keep going. It's the sum of all of those numbers as I keep going from one box to the next. All right, it's keeping track of those. So let's go ahead and do this one now. I'm going to move this over here so it's easier to see. This one now is going to be 0.12 plus I write down 0.02. That should be 0.2. Excuse me. That's the highlighter. 0.2, right? 0.2 plus 0.26 plus the next one now, 0.16. And I add that up, and that gives me 0.74. How are you guys doing with this this cumulative frequency? Did I lose anybody on the cumulative frequency? Or matter of fact, did I lose anybody on the relative frequency? I forgot to check in with you guys there. Are you guys okay with how these numbers are getting filled in? How these numbers are getting filled in? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Do you have a question? You gotta let me know. It makes sense. Okay. And that's all I'm gonna keep doing. I'm just gonna keep adding these up. By the way, you don't have to add these all up every single time because I already know what the total of this is, right? For this next one, it's going to be 0.12 plus 0.2 plus 0.26 plus 0.16. And then I'm going to add this new number, which is 0.01. I don't know if you guys understand this or not, but if you look at these numbers right here, that's just equal to that. So we just did that already. So I could just take that answer instead of retyping all of this, just type in 0.74 and just add the next number to it. And my answer is going to be 0.84. And if you don't believe me, you could type all that into your calculator and you'll see it comes out to 0.84. So what's beautiful is that as you keep doing this, it just keeps going on and on, right, with the numbers that you have before it. So if I want to do the next one, I could just take this number right here, and that's going to represent this long number down here, whatever that is, plus 0.12. And when I add that to 0.12, 0.84 plus 0.12, that gives me my next answer. My next answer here is 0.96. By the way, 0.96, 0.84, 0.74, and 0.58. Do you guys understand that those decimals actually represent percentages? Do you guys know that, for example, 96% is the same thing as 0.96? You guys get that? Percentages and decimals are related in that way. And when we deal with statistics, you know how statistics is always like, oh, that's an 85% chance of happening. When we write it down for us to calculate it, we don't actually write it down as 85%. We write it down as 0.85. So just keep that in mind. anyways, this last one, right? 0.96 plus 0.04 is going to give me 1.00, which, by the way, makes 100%. So when you do your cumulative frequency, the last number you have in your class right here should be very, very close to 100% because you're adding up all these percentages. And when you add up all your data, you should have 100% of your data. So does that make sense? Hopefully that does. You're able to see how I filled out these charts right here. I didn't do the midpoint too much. So let's go back here. I just showed you 3 new things. I kind of jumped all over the place, but I wanted to show you. It's not like what you guys were asking earlier, right? Is it hard now that we're doing math? You guys see, right? The math isn't hard. And not only that, you get to use calculators to do these stuff. So you don't have to do this in your head, right? You can just use the calculator to type it out. But remembering what needs to go into the box is the part that's going to be hard, right? So you guys have to remember, like, oh, midpoint. I just take the 2 numbers. In this case, is going to be 19 plus 30, and then divide it by 2, right? Yeah, it's just a lot of numbers. I agree, right? So 19 plus 30, divide that by 2. And again, how do you know that was the case? Well, it's the average of the 2. That's how you find the middle number. It's the average of the 2. So this is going to be 19 plus 30 divided by 2. And you just plug that into your calculator. 19 plus 30, divide that by 2. And that's going to come out to 24.5. 24.5, right? There's a shortcut for the midpoint. There's no shortcut for the relative frequency and the cumulative frequency. You just have to calculate those. But the midpoint actually has a shortcut. You ready for this? This number is 12.5. This next number is 24.5. Can somebody tell me into the chat, what's the difference between 24.5 and 12.5? Can someone type that into a calculator and tell me, what do you get when you subtract 24.5 and 12.5? What's the difference there? Calvin typed it out. 12. 12. You ready for this shocker? The difference there is 12, right? Back to this example up here. What was the class width? What was the class width? It was also 12. Do you see that? So when I started counting from one class to the next, I could count by 12s. Guess what's going to happen with the midpoints? They're also going to go by 12s, and I can prove it to you. Let's do this one. 31 plus 42. Divide that by 2. Check this out. Plug that into a calculator. 31 plus 42. Divide that by 2. It comes out to 36.5. Well, guess what? If I had just taken the 24.5 and added 12 to that, I got the same answer. So you don't actually have to do this for all of them. If you see that if you know what the class width is, you could just keep adding 12 to this. So 36.5 plus 12 would give me 48.5. 48.5 plus 12 would give me 60.5. And then that plus 12 would give me 72.5. And last but not least, 84.5. Those are my class widths without having to add the 2 limits together and then divide by 2. You just do it once and then add the class width for all of those, and you'll get that filled out as well. How are you guys doing? You all right? You're not all right? You're like kind of lost? You're kind of not lost? It kind of makes sense, but it's tedious. It looks like it's going to take too much time to do this homework. You know, let me know. How do you feel? Is this like okay? Is it not okay? Is it... Wait, where did the 12 come from? The 12 comes from what we did last time, right? When we were looking at these classes, the 12 is the class width. Remember, like our warm-up, we had to figure out what the class width was? Looking at this, the class width here is 12, right? It's from 7 to 19, it's 12. Or if you counted it out, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So there's 12 there. So that's another way of looking at it, right? And yeah, so our frequency table now is not only going to just be the class and the frequency, it's no longer just these 2 parts of it, right? It's now going to be this whole part right here. You're going to have to tell me what is the midpoints, what are the relative frequencies, and what are the cumulative frequencies. I had students in the past ask me for relative frequencies, do you prefer me to keep it as a fraction or a decimal? And I'm going to leave that option up to you. Some people like fractions. Some people like decimals. I leave that up to you, right? If you leave it as a fraction, that's one less thing you have to type into the calculator. If you hate fractions because for some reason everybody hates fractions, I don't know why, then do the extra step, type it into the calculator, and give me the decimal, okay? For the cumulative frequency, though, you can leave it as a decimal, right, from the relative frequency, or you can do another way, and I'll show that on the next one. So I'm gonna wait for a little bit here. Were you guys able to copy down this chart? This is the I'll do, so hopefully you guys were able to copy this down into your notes. And again, if I move on and you haven't copied this down yet, remember, all these notes are shared with you guys, right? You guys can go onto my Canvas page. You can get back onto these notes whenever you want and just copy down these numbers in there. And make sure when you're copying it down, you understand where I'm getting these numbers from. And if not, you know, come ask me during my office hours or rewatch this video and see how I got these points, okay? All right, I'm gonna come down here to the will do. Excuse me. I'm gonna do the will do here. Oh God, undo. Here we go. Oh, boop. I'm gonna cheat again. I'm just gonna put this line down here. And we'll do this one together. So for this one, we're supposed to be using the frequency distribution that we constructed in the first will do. We need to find the midpoint, find the relative frequency, and find the cumulative frequency for each of the classes, right? Oh, we're supposed to be interpreting the table, but we'll do that later. So for the will do, for the first will do, how many classes do we have for this will do? Can you guys help me out here? Let's count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 classes, right? And there were these numbers down here. Man, that's a lot of numbers. So I'm gonna go ahead and write this out for you guys down here. There's supposed to be 8 of these classes. I don't know if I can fit 8 of these. Let me stretch that out a little bit. Oh, okay. What is happening? Stretch it out to there. I don't know if I can fit 8 classes into this. Can I? I gotta make them like super small. Let me zoom in a little bit here, somebody. So give me a second. I'm just gonna get these numbers down. Dog is barking again. She's just so angry today. I don't know why she's so angry today. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need one more, and we'll do that right there. I'm sorry that this doesn't look pretty, but why did I make this so small? I'm gonna blame the guy who made these notes. You know, he had the typo from before, so whoever that guy was, it was his fault, not my fault. Yeah, it was his fault. Never my fault. It's never Nakmi's fault. That's one thing that you'll learn when you have my class. It's never my fault. Things that happen, you know, it's someone else's fault. All right, so let me help you guys out. So what we're supposed to do is supposed to take all the numbers that we wrote down from the will do, which is here, and fill out that chart. If you guys want, you can copy and paste it because you guys have that ability on Kami. I think you can copy and paste, right? You're writing on there, but if you're like me, I'm gonna write it down over here by hand. So you guys, if you want to follow that way. So let me go ahead and write this down. The first class was 7 to 18. I lied. I'm already lying to you guys at the start here. The first class for the will do was 15 to 24. 15 to 24. The next one was 25 to 34. And the next one was 35 to 44. 45 to 54. 55 to 64. I'm starting to see a pattern here. 65 to 74. 75 to 84. And then 85 to 94. I'm getting these numbers, by the way. What's the name of the notes? It is, the name of these notes are, where's my mouse? The name of these notes is 2.1 in Unit 2, frequency distributions and their graphs. So yeah, it's 2.1. Just know that, the notes that we're on. Oh, and for those who are wondering, how did I get these numbers? All I'm doing is looking at the will do we did earlier from last class. You see right here, it says will do one. Right? That's what they're telling me to focus on is the will do. And we got this table from last time. right? We got this table from last time. So I'm just copying it down. I'm getting the numbers from these classes. You see 15 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64. I'm just taking them and I'm transferring down to this table down here, okay? We also have the frequency already done as well. We counted that out together, right? And the numbers were, let's see here. It was 16, 34, and then 30, right? And then I'm going to take these numbers right here, and I'm going to copy them down as well. So it was 16, 34, 30, 23. I'm going to go down here. So it was 6. Those are high. Oh, come on. Get it together, knock me. There we go. There we go. Breathe. We're okay. All right. First number, 16, 34. I think this was 30, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, while I'm doing this. I think this was 23, 13, 2, 0, and 1. Can you guys verify? Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. We'll always count to 10 every now and then. Okay, so we already did this part on the last time, so we're not going to do it again. That's why I was just copying the numbers over. But what we need to fill out now are the midpoints, the relative frequencies, and the cumulative frequencies. So this is going to require a little bit of work, right? So in your notes, if you want to write down at the top how to calculate them, that's what I usually do before I actually start doing the work. So for example, for the midpoint, I like to write down in the top, how do you calculate the midpoint? It's the lower limit plus the upper limit divided by 2. I like to put that down there at the top just so I know what I'm doing when I get into these problems. So to calculate the midpoint here, right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here just to make it a little bit easier to see. I'm looking for 15 plus 24 divided by 2. That's how I calculate this midpoint, right? So I'm going to go to my calculator here. I'm going to type in those numbers. 15 plus 24, divide that by 2. And that's going to be 19.5. And that's that answer right here, 19.5. And I'm going to do that for all of these, right? I'm going to do that for all of these. This next one is going to be 25 plus 34 divided by 2. And that's going to be, well, let's take a look. 25 plus 34, divide that by 2. And I get 29.5, 29.5. And I'm going to hope that I see a pattern going from one class to the next, right? I hope that I see a pattern. And Calvin already typed it in there. It's by tens. And if you guys remember, right, when we did this example, the class width for this, the class width, if you look back at that example, was 10, right? We calculated the class width to be 10. And if I know the class width is 10, I can just count by tens, right? This is 19.5, this is 29.5. Guess what the next one's going to be? 39.5, 49.5, 59.5, 69.5, 79.5, and 89.5, right? 89.5. So those are my midpoints. They're all done, right? And again, if you don't want to do that shortcut, you don't have to. You can go and use your calculator and just add the class widths each time. So not the class width, add the class boundaries, the class limits, right? The upper limit and the lower limit. So I can do 35 plus 44, and then divide that by 2. See, I get the same answer. And that's all your midpoints are. They're just the number that's exactly in the middle of your class. The midpoint is just the numbers that are exactly in the middle of your class. Okay? And that's that one. How are you guys doing? Are you guys okay? Midpoint's all right? Not too bad? Not too shabby? Right? Relative frequency is where now it starts to be a different set of numbers, and the rules for it is a little bit different from the previous ones. I'm going to write this in orange. For relative frequency, all you're going to do is take the frequency number and divide that by your total number of your data. Oh, God, I got to find that, don't I? How do I find my n, guys? What is my n equal to? What is my n equal to? Oscar already got it. Oscar is saying it's 119. It's 119. How'd you get that number, Oscar? Or you don't have to type it out, I guess. Whenever you want to. If you want to help me explain it. I don't have to talk all this time. I might have to say it anyways. Man, it's so much easier when we're in class. But yeah, Oscar's right. It is 119. And Calvin's snapping it out for me. Thank you. You added all the frequencies, right? You just add all these up right here. Add all these up and you get your N. There's actually another way to do it as well if you're really lazy and you don't want to add these numbers up. If you're really lazy, you ready? If you're like a knock me and you're kind of lazy, not really lazy, kind of lazy, because knock me is not really lazy. But check this out. In the notes, in the will do, it tells you right here, the following represents the number of touchdowns scored by, look at that number, 119. It's telling you that there's 119 data points there. So it should equal to 119 when you add it up. Just like the one before it. This one tells you that there were 50 numbers involved. So when you add it up, it should be equal to 50. So a lot of the times in these word problems, they'll tell you. And if they don't, you just add them up. But if they do, hey, look at that. One less thing to do. All right. So I know that I need to divide by 119. That's a monstrosity of a number. And lucky for us, we can just use our calculators to do them, right? So check this out here. I'm going to go ahead and look at this number. The frequency for this class is 16. 16. And I'm going to divide that. I'm going to divide that by 119, right? 116, I'm going to divide that by 119 because we found that earlier. And just plug it into the calculator. 16 divided by 119. 119. Now, here's why I always bring this up when I look at these. How many decimal places do I need to write down? If you leave your answer in fraction form, you don't have to worry about it. You just leave it as a fraction, right? 16 over 19, 1019, you're done there. But again, some reason students hate fractions. And if you hate fractions and you want to do the decimal, you can. But when you write down this decimal for me, in my class, when you deal with decimals, I want you to go to 4 decimal places. I'm going to say that again. When you're writing down your decimals, I want you to go to 4 decimal places. I want you to get used to going to 4 decimal places. So this right here, I would not write down 0.13. I would not put down 0.134. I would not put down 0.1344. You guys see that? I'm actually going to put down 0.134. And if I'm going to the 4th decimal place, I have to round based off of the 5th one right there. So that's going to be 0.1345. So this is 0.1345. And I'll show it again. All right, does that make sense why it rounds to 4, 5? And I'm hoping you guys can see it. It's rounding to 4, 5 because the decimal number after the 4th place is a 5, and that's going to round up. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll just do another one, right? We'll just do another one. Let's take a look at this next one. Let's say the next one is going to be 34 over 119. And that's going to give me 34 over 119. And that's going to give me 0.2857. 0.2857. Can we just write the fraction instead? Yes, Calvin, that's what I was saying. If you want to leave it as 34 over 119, you can. And that's perfectly fine. Right? So here, this is going to be 0.285. What the heck was that number? 7. You see how this one doesn't round that 7 to an 8? And that's because the decimal place that's right there, the decimal place that's after the 7 is a 1. And you would not round that up. Too much work for the decimals. I agree, Calvin. But I'm telling you, the years that I've taught this, every student, for some reason, the majority of my students, hate fractions. And I don't know why. Like, 34 over 119, like, that's a valid answer. But if you hate fractions and you want to write it as a decimal, that's how I want the decimals written in my class, okay? Rounded to 4 decimal places every single time. All right, so can you guys go ahead and start calculating these next ones? Fill it into your chart. See what you guys get. I'm students. All right, Marissa, you know what? I'm going to put you in charge for this next one. Marissa, can you open up your calculator? Tell me, what's the decimal number that needs to go in here? I'll show you what you should type into the calculator, but can you type out the decimal for me? This one is going to be 30 over 119. Can you tell me what should I put in there as the decimal form if you don't want it as a fraction? Because since you're like most of my students who don't like fractions, tell me what would you get as a decimal for that one, right? Use your calculator, by the way. Don't do that in your head. Yeah, don't do 30 divided by 119 in your head. Type it into your calculator. Help me out here. What is that going to be? Hopefully you have a calculator in front of you, Marissa. If not, just open up Google. Type it into Google. What does 30 over 119 give me? What does it give me? All right, I'm gonna trust you, Marissa. 0.2521. 0.2521. Yeah, I'm not even gonna type that in the calculator. I'm just trusting you that that's what you get, right? And that's all you're gonna do for the rest of these, right? You go through and you just type it into the calculator, or you leave it as a fraction, however you want. So this one would be 23 over 119. This one would be 13 over 119. This would be 2 over 119. This would be 0 over 119. And this would be 1 over 119. Right? So can you guys go ahead and start filling those out? You can use your calculator. You can use Google to type it into the calculator. You could leave it as a fraction if you want. But I'm going to go ahead. I already started with the decimals. We're going to do all these decimals in there. Right? So the next one is 23 divided by 119. And it says 0.19327. That one's going to round up. So this is going to be 0.1933. 1933. Right? Do the next one. 13 divided by 119. That's going to give me 0.1092. Right? Keep going, keep going. This next one's going to be 2 divided by 119. That's a small number, by the way. That's going to be 0.0168. And 0 out of 119, I don't even have to put that in the calculator. I hope you guys will see that's just going to be 0. I guess if you really wanted to, it's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Just type it as 0. I just erased a line. Careful. There we go. And the last one is 1 over 19. 119. 1 over 119. That's going to be 0.0084. 0.0084. Woo! You see what I mean, though? This isn't hard, right? This isn't hard. It's just, I don't want to say annoying. It's just tedious, right? But that's how we fill out these charts. And that's how we do this. And I'm actually going to show you one, if you want. There is a shortcut. I don't know if you guys want to learn it. It involves Excel or Google Sheets. Have you guys ever used Google Sheets before? It's like a spreadsheet where you can type in numbers and whatnot. And if you don't want to learn the shortcut, just ignore me for a second. If you do want to learn the shortcut, check this out real quick, right? Real fast. Let me go ahead and open this up. Actually, I'll leave that right there so you guys can still copy it down if you guys are still typing it down. But I wanted to show you a shortcut. It's because, when you start dealing with this stuff, it's like I said, it's super tedious. It's super annoying. But there is a shortcut for this. And I'm going to show you right now how to get your something to calculate it for you instead. So let me go ahead and do this real quick. 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, 65 to 74, oops, and 75 to 84, and 85 to 94. And you 16, 34, 30, 23, 13, 2, 0, and 1. So you hear me saying a bunch of these numbers, right? And what I'm doing right now is typing it into this guy right here. This is what Google Sheets looks like. You guys see that? Right? That's super tiny. So let me zoom in on this real quick. So what I did was I just took the numbers and I just typed it into this sheet, right? So check this out. When you have Google Sheets, instead of like drawing out your tables, this will make the tables for you. But check this out. This is what I think is neat. You see down here, right? You can put all your boxes here. Check this out. I can highlight these boxes like this and look at the bottom right corner. Do you guys see this right here on my screen? What does it say there? It says the sum of those numbers is what? 119. So instead of me typing it into a calculator and adding it one by one, I could just type it into here and highlight those numbers, and it'll tell me the sum is 119. So down here, I could say, oh, n equals to 119, right? So that part's done, right? And then the midpoints that we had for this were, I already forgot, what were the midpoints? The midpoint was 19.5, 29.5, and so on, right? So this one was 19.5, the next one was 29.5, and the next one after that was 39.5. And you'll say, like, knock me, I already wrote this down, but check this out. If you do this and Excel notices a pattern, watch this. You ready? You ready to have your mind blown? You can highlight the numbers here, and if it has a pattern, you can drag this down all the way to here. You ready for this? You let go. It fills it out for you. 49, 59, 69, 79, 89. Those are the numbers we got. You see that? That's pretty neat, right? Yeah. It gets better. It gets better. You ready for this one? You ready for this one? This next chart was the relative frequency, right? The relative frequency was whatever number you had in your frequency divided by your total, right? Divided by your total. So check this out. You ready? You're not ready. You ready? I'm not ready. Let me get to there. So in D, I need it to equal to the number that's in this cell. And the number in this cell is, if you look at the way you read this, is you read this as B1, and this is going to be read as B2, and this is read as B3. So check this out. For D, I want this, and this is the part that has a little bit of Google Sheets knowledge that you need to have, or Excel knowledge. You want this to equal to whatever number I have in B1, which is, you see how it pops up as 16? I type in B1, it's highlighting this box. So I want it to equal to whatever I have in that number, or in that box, divided by 119. 119. You see that? And then all I have to do now is press enter. And check this out. You see this number right here? 0.13445, and I just want to round that to 0.1345. And that's typed in there for me. And you'll say, that's a little tedious. You have to type in B2 divided by 119? No, you don't. You highlight this box that has the equation typed in for you, and simply take it. You see the little box right here, the little blue box right here? You click on that, drag that all the way down to however many data points you have. And you ready for this? Just let go. And there are all the decimal numbers that I had. Get out of here. Get out of here. Let me show you guys the numbers that we got here. You ready? So that's the chart right there, right? I got these decimals, right? Get out of the way. What are you doing? There we go. So you can see the decimals that we got right here. 0.1345. That's right there. 0.2857. 0.2521. 0.1933. 0.1092. All of them typed in there in your spreadsheet, without me having to do it one by one. Now, if that's too crazy and too much, hold off on that. Don't worry about Google Sheets. Don't worry about Excel. Just do it by hand, just how we were doing it. I'm just saying, I think that's pretty cool, just because, you don't have to sit there and type each one. You could just put it into a computer and it'll do it all for you. But it involves a little bit more steps. How are you guys doing, by the way? If you weren't looking at the Sheets part, to come back, focus over here. Are you okay with how we got all the numbers in this box right here? Are you guys okay with how I got all these numbers right here? I just need to know. You guys are doing okay? I haven't lost you, right? Like, you guys are doing all right? Okay. Okay, that's good. Dang it. I keep erasing that. Okay, so let's go on to the last part, which is the cumulative frequency. And the cumulative frequency is just the numbers in the relative frequency added up along the way. You can leave it as a fraction if you want. So I can leave it as 16 over 119 and just keep adding fractions as I go. Or you can leave it as decimals. Pick one or the other. Don't do both, okay? Pick one or the other. So if you want to keep it as fractions, then keep them all as fractions. So then the next one would be whatever 16 plus 34 is, if you want to keep it as a fraction. So that would be, turn on the calculator, 16 plus 34, that is not 34. 16 plus 34, which is 50, well, duh, knock me, 50 over 119. And if you want to leave it as a fraction, you can leave it like this. Or you can add the decimals up instead. And for this one, this would be 0.1345 plus 0.2857. So I would add those guys together. So 0.1345 plus 0.2857, and that gives me 0.4202. 4202. Right? And I just keep going. I just keep adding them along. So the next one would be 0.4202 plus 0.2521. Plug that into the calculator. 0.2521, and that's going to give me I forget the number, 6723. And you just keep going. So the next one would be 0.6723 plus the next number, which is 0.1933. Plug that into the calculator. 0.1933. Give me 1 second. I messed up. Which is 0.8656. 8656. And you just keep going. Can you guys? Yeah, let's just keep going here. Next one, plus that answer would be added to 0.1092. That's going to give me 0.9748. 0.9748. Add that to the next one, plus 0.0168, which is going to give me 0.9916. 0.9916. This is still going to be 0.9916. And this last one is going to be 0.9916 plus 0.0084, which comes out to 1. Whew. Again, not hard, right? Not hard. I'm hoping you see that it's not hard. It's just, well, annoying. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This is kind of annoying, but it's not hard, right? It's not super hard. It's just tedious, right? You got to go in there and you fill out these charts, fill out those numbers. But once you get it, right? Like I said, the hardest part of this, I would have to say, is finding this class, right? I'd say that's the hardest part. Once you find out what the classes are, you just count, and then once you count, you just do the rest of this thing. I get it, but it's a lot of work. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah, I agree with you guys. So here's the thing. On the test, you are going to have a problem like this. You are going to have to fill out a chart. And I don't want you to sit there and freak out about how it is. It's just a lot of stuff that you got to do. So just take your time, go through it piece by piece, and fill it out along the way. If you want to go above and beyond and you want to start using Google Sheets, right? I'll keep bringing this back up. Google Sheets has a way for you to do these, and it just does it a lot quicker, right? So check this out. I can type it in here, and I can say that this is going to be equal to, actually, this one's going to be too hard to do the last one for the cumulative one. Just one, though. Yeah, I would not give you I would not give you more than one question to fill in a chart, because that's just dumb. That's just too much time consumption, right? If I do give you multiple questions about the chart, I wouldn't ask you to fill it out. It would be questions like, hey, here's a frequency chart. Can you tell me what's the total, right? So you'd have to add this up. Or, hey, what's the class width given this chart right here? And you'd be able to have to tell me oh, it's 10, right? Or, hey, I think that's all I would really ask. I wouldn't even ask you to fill out this stuff more than once. That would just be too much. We got 10 minutes here. This is a you try, and I want you guys to try this one. I'm going to copy this over so you guys can copy this down onto this one right here. So here we go. I'm going to write these down here, and you guys can write them down as well into here. Give me 1 second here. Do I still have that line? I do. So this one is going to have 7 classes. So that's there. I think that's 7. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 classes. Good. So I'm going to give you these numbers. This is from the earlier one, and I'm just going to write it down so you don't have to go back and forth. Okay? So you guys can copy this down here. Copy these down here. So this is going to be, the classes was from 59 to 114. This next one was 115 to 170. This next one is 171 to 226. This one was 227. Wow, I did not even this out, space those out evenly. To 282. This one is 283 to 338, 339 to 394, and then the last one is 395 to 450. 395 to 450. And then the frequencies for this one was nice small numbers: 5, 8, 6, 5, 2, 1, and 3. So for this last one, right, we got 10 minutes here. This last one, I want you to calculate the midpoints, the relative frequencies, and the cumulative frequencies. Of course, you're not going to have time to turn it into the pair deck for today, so I want you to just do it on your notes, just so you can have it for yourself. Okay, so try it right now. If you have any questions on how to get these, I would ask now. We have 10 minutes left in here. Do you want me to go over how to do one of these or the other ones? Or are you feeling comfortable enough to try this on your own? And again, this is how I would start this. Are you ready? For the midpoint, on my own notes, I would write down how to do that calculation. I would write down that, oh, this is the lower limit plus the upper limit divided by 2. Just to remind myself, that's what I need to do for all the numbers in this column. Okay? And then I would go to the relative frequency and I would say, oh, this is just the frequency divided by my n, which means I need to go over here and calculate what n is equal to. And that would give me all the numbers in this row. Once you get the first 2 rows, the last row is the easiest of the row, right? The cumulative frequency, right? I will write down in my notes somewhere that cumulative means to just add. I mean, I don't know why I was trying to spell it when I said add. Add, right? The relative frequency along the way, right? So that's what I would do for this one. So you guys go ahead and I want you to spend the last 8 minutes of this class trying this out and filling out these answers on your own chart. And if you feel confident enough to do this already, right, then maybe you want to try opening up Google Sheets, right, or Excel or Microsoft Excel, and try typing these numbers into there and have it do the calculations for you. In fact, I might show that for the last 5 minutes. Do this by hand right now, and then I'll show you what the thought process is to do this on Google Sheets. You know what? That actually wouldn't be a bad idea. So go ahead and start filling this out. I'm going to start working this on a Google Sheet from beginning to end. Okay, so there's my Google Sheets. I'm going to delete the numbers that are here. So you just highlight everything, you just hit delete, and it deletes everything, right? And then you just start over. So I'm going to make this small again, and I'm going to look at the numbers I have here. I'm just going to type the numbers in. So just type these numbers in. So 59 to 114, 115 to 170, 170. It's just so much easier to type than writing it out. Saying, you know. Work smarter, not harder, right? But the only problem with working smarter is it requires a little bit of thinking. And some people don't like thinking. But here's the thing, though. If you actually think these through, it actually makes these types of problems, as tedious as they are, really quick to do. So I'm just typing them into my Google Sheets, by the way. If you just search Google Sheets, it'll pop this up, and you just say a new blank one, and you just type in whatever numbers you want. I'm typing in the numbers that are here. All right, so if you type the numbers in like so, you ready for this? Instead of just to find out what n is, I just got to add all these up and see what it is. And I'm just going to highlight this. Check it out. It tells me right there the sum is 30. So I write that down at the bottom. Equals 30. Now the next part is the midpoint. Dun, dun, dun. The midpoint. So I could actually tell this thing to do the midpoint for me, right? Or you just type it into the calculator. But I'm gonna do it right here. You just hit, if you want it to do math for you, you have to press equals first. You see how equal comes up on the in my box right there? Once you type in equals, you can tell it what numbers you want it to do math with. And the numbers I want it to do math with is going to be 59 plus 114. And then I want it to take that and divide that by 2. So you see how I typed this in there with my keyboard? And I got my midpoint to be 86.5. Were you guys, is that right? I don't know if any of you guys have already started this or are doing it right now. Can anybody tell me? Did you guys already calculate the midpoint for the first one? Can you guys double check? Is the answer for this one supposed to be 86.5? Right? Yes. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you for telling me. I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. You hit equals, right? And I put it in parentheses. I'm going to add 115 plus 170 and then divide that by 2. And I'm hoping you guys got this as well for the second one. It should be 142.5. And yep, nice. And here's, you ready for this part now? You already know that there's a pattern here. From 86.5 to 142.5, I think that has a class width of 56. And you can just add 56 each time. Or if you're using Sheets, you drag and highlight these two numbers. And then you see the little box shows up right there? You click and drag that box down all the way to the last row. And once you drag that down all the way to the last row, you just let go. It failed. It didn't work. Well, that was a fail. Oh, that was a fail. I think I need 3 numbers for this to see a pattern, I guess. Let me try one more. So this was, oh, you know why it's not working? Because I used the equation. Oh, I need to type in the actual number, 86.5. And then this one needs to actually be 142.5. If you actually type it in as the equation, it just copies the equation over. I'm sorry, that was my fault. But yeah, so once I have the numbers typed in like that, and then I type in the numbers themselves, it should, there we go. It should follow the pattern for you, and it should get you all those. You see that though? It takes a little bit more effort, right? But once you get the hang of this, you end up doing these problems like super quick, right? I don't know. Have you guys seen the video where the actually I don't know how many people you guys would actually watch those like random math videos, but there's like a video circulating of a lady teaching people how to multiply a 2-digit number with another 2-digit number, right? It's like it became like a meme, right? Of like this lady was showing a video of like, hey, here's how you multiply 23 times like 37, and then she broke it down into like 20 plus 3 and then 30 plus 7, right? Have you seen this before, guys? Have you seen this video where she does this and she says, oh, you multiply these numbers first and then you multiply these numbers and then you add it up, and then there's like a random person who comes in and just says, oh, just do it this way, 37 times 23, right? And then he does it the old school way where you multiply like numbers like this and then he gets the answer super quick. I hate this video. I hate it like with a passion, because this is true. This is how they used to teach us how to do multiplication, and they might have taught it to you guys as well. But just to be honest with you, and I was joking earlier about making that Asian joke, like, you know, I do math quicker in my head because I'm Asian. That's just a lie. I do math quicker in my head because I've done a lot of, you know, I've just done a lot of math problems before. I don't do multiplication like this if I want to do it fast. I do it this way. And the reason why it's slower is because she was teaching it. But the point I'm trying to make is this. The Google Sheets is definitely going to be a little bit slower the first time you do it. But once you get the hang of it, you finish these problems, especially for homework. You'll finish them in like minutes, literal minutes. If you have to make a table, you will finish them in under, like, if you just get this down on Sheets, you'll finish them super quick. But anyways, that doesn't really matter. It's up to you. You want to do it by hand, you can do it by hand. I'm not judging. All I care is that you give me the right answers. And that's it, guys. You have no more math for the rest of this week. I'll post the homework up. You won't be able to do all of them. In fact, I don't think you'll be able to do more than like a quarter of it. So if you want to start it, you can. You don't have to. But that's it for me, guys. I won't be seeing you until Monday. You will have a quiz on Monday based off of these frequency tables. And other than that, you have nothing else left. So have a good weekend. Stay out of trouble. Stay out of jail. and don't get pregnant. All right. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend. So long. Bye-bye. See you guys later.